Okay, so hi everyone. I'm trying to make a playlist for the oncology forecasting since many of you have requested. So I think I would make at least 5 or 6 videos in that playlist. So let's start with the first one. So I have a scenario. Let's say there's a client and they want you to forecast their oncology drug. It could be any and it is specially for stage 4 cancer. And the client's asset is for 12 plus indication, and they are expecting that they would release the efficacy and safety data in ASCO, which is the upcoming American Society of Cancer Oncology conference. So we are just assuming, that our drug is for stage 4 cancer and it is used in second line and beyond 12 plus, and it is currently in phase 3, and the key data will be presented at ASCO 2026. So I will show what each row in the model would mean and where to source that info. So this video would be more focused on the sources that we would be using, right? And how pharma companies actually build forecasts. So every forecast, that starts with the population, right? So here I would be using in the upcoming videos, I would be using mainly country level population. You can source this kind of information from World Bank, then we have US, UN population database, then we have government census data also. So that is these are the major sources where you extract your population from. So this becomes our base denominator, I would say. Then after population, you have the incidence rate. So this basically tells us out of 100 people how many develop this cancer every year or every month, right? So mainly you fetch incidence rate or incidence data from Globocan, or also we have SEER, and you can just put these keywords on Google and you would get these sources. And then we have national cancer registries as well. And sometimes we need to, if the disease or therapy area is niche or rare, we would refer to some peer-reviewed journals as well. So the incidence population. So we would do calculation in up next video. So this is just to give an idea the sources that we majorly use, right? Uh, if we have to forecast for a specific brand that is still in the phase 3, then you already know from my previous video that incident population is population into incidence rate. Then we have third, now every patient gets diagnosed, right? So we will be putting diagnosis rate. So for the diagnosis rate, we mainly rely on real world studies, on market research, and KOL interviews as well sometimes, key opinion leader interviews. Then mostly for the developed nations, right? The diagnosis rate is 90 to 80, 98%, we assume, for developed nations. And if these are your emerging markets, right, then we mostly consider somewhere around 60 to 85%. Then you know that the diagnosed population, right? You multiply incidence rate with the diagnosis rate and you get your diagnosed population, right? So then we, so this is your top layers. After getting the diagnosed population, you do a patient split by type, right? So now we do basically a patient split by type. Okay. So this type could be anything like histology, molecular subtype, tumor location, right? Any uh, type you want to use, like histology, like if it is breast cancer, if whether it is HER2 positive, HER2 negative, or TNBC, right? Or any molecular subtype you want to use in your model or tumor location. It depends on it. The type that you would be putting in your model basically depend on the model or the therapy area. If it's breast cancer, you would choose different type. If it's lung cancer, you would choose different. Also depends on the assay that you are working on. Then the sources that you would be using is, of course, SEER, then clinical registries or clinical trials data, and some guidelines like NCCN guidelines and all. So our drug works only in one subtype. So we will be locking that population here, right? So then we split the cancer by stage, or we can call it, oh my God, I'm sorry. Then what we do is basically we split the cancer by stage. So what does that mean is, so we have a typical split of stage one, then stage two, stage three, and stage four, right? So we would be splitting our cancer, right? So we call it stage distribution, whether it is how many percentage of patients are falling in each stage, right? I'm just putting a rough number here. So basically you capture this kind of information, right, from cancer registries, and sometimes you need to capture some real world studies also. Okay. So since our drug, as I mentioned, is especially for stage four, so we will be isolating that group in our next video. So source I have already mentioned. Then what we capture is so first we capture population incidence, then we captured diagnosis in the third, and I would put it here for now. Then patient split by type, and the fifth one was split cancer by stage. These are your top five parameters in your funnel. Then the sixth one comes is, your progression from early stages. So what happens in progression from early stages, our drug is specially for 2L plus brand, right? So, so this part is critical for drugs, which there are different lines of therapies, right? We start with neoadjuvant, adjuvant, then first line 1L plus, 2L, 2L plus, then 3L, and we also have something like 3L to 4L. So we have different lines of therapy. If you want to read more about the lines of therapy, you can look at the NCCN guidelines. That's a wonderful source, I would say. Then progression from early stages, right? So this is critical for 12 plus drugs. Some patients progress from stage one to two, then stage two patients would be progressing to stage three, right? So we would be checking that actually in a long story short, we would be majorly checking how many patients are progressing from stage one to two and stage two to three. So for that, we would be using progression rates. I will tell that in the later videos. So these patients enter our market later, right? 2L plus. You see, first patients would be entering uh, into, first using first line drug or surgery, adjuvant after first line. So our drug is for 2L plus. So these patients would enter our market later. So sources you can use are like sometimes there are long-term cohorts or real-world evidence publication mainly. So you don't have you won't get a direct number. Basically, you would need to triangulate that approach. So, but how do we check how many patients are progressing from one stage to the another? We basically apply progression rate percentage, and then we also check something like time lag in years. So this basically gives us, a recurrent or progressed stage for patients, I would say. Recurrent or progressed. stage for patients, right? So once you have, your total stage 4 pool, so the total stage 4 patients equal like new stage 4 cases, progress patients from early stages. So this means all the early stage patients plus new stage 4 cases. So that would be your total stage 4 population. Then we apply something like treatment rate. So not all stage 4 patients get treated, right? So we apply treatment rate. Basically, we claim it from real world studies, um, and even KOL interviews we do sometimes, and we check basically the claims data mainly. I would explain claims data also. So it again depends the treatment rate. If it is uh, emerging market, the treatment rate would be somewhere around I would say 50 to 70% if these are emerging market. Um, and if those are um, and in the other scenario, other case, it would be around like US. If you see, there would be around 80 to 90% treatment rate otherwise. Then after the treatment rate, so treated patients are what? Your stage 4 patients into the treatment rate, and you would get your treated patients, right? Um, okay. So then comes the concept of LOT or line of therapy. So this filter is only for our drug for 2L plus. So now we would check how many percentage of patients are in 1L, 2L, 3L, right? Or 3L plus. So we would be checking that, like how many percentage would be in 1L or how many percentage would be in 2L. So there you would be using IQVIA tools, and you would be using claims data. Also, there are different third-party vendors like even Kantar you can use. So it depends on the company that you would be working with, right? Then, so our patients are mainly 2L plus, right? Then we do put some filter like biomarker filter also sometimes. Uh, so our drug targets a specific biomarker, let's say HER2, right? Or there would be different biomarkers, right? HER2, KRAS, PDL1, right? And then BRCA also one of the. So which biomarker your client's drug would be targeting? Let's say HER2. So you would be checking, that row only. You mainly check it through the clinical trials, phase 2, phase 3, right? And journals. Okay, so the whole agenda of this is we need to check how many percentage of patients would be positive, biomarker positive percentage. We will be checking through this filter. Then the other one we would be like we would be doing forecast for the total market, right? So now that we have the incident stage for progressed patients, biomarker positive, TT patients, 2L plus only, now you would get your true addressable market, right? So now comes our product forecast. Okay, so what will happen in the product forecast is, right, now, so this is very fun part because until here, anyone can, extract that information from different schedule sourcing, right? So this is brand level forecasting. In the product forecast, we mainly do brand level forecasting. So we basically apply here market curve or launch curves. Okay. Apart from that, how do we apply those market or launch curve is we basically do analog analysis from we get this information from IQVIA MIDAS. We also do attribute analysis. Uh, Here we will be giving scores to the drugs that are in the late stage development, let's say phase three, and we will be comparing it with the drugs that have been already launched in the market since past 5 years at least. So that is attribute analysis. We will study that in detail. Then other thing also we do is market analysis or market studies. What we do basically in the market studies is we um, mainly do primary analysis. We take KOL interviews and we because we need to understand what doctors' behavior would be when this drug would be getting launched into the market and whether they would be switching their patients from their current drug that they are prescribing to this new drug that would be coming into the market in the next 2 years, right? So you would be doing that. So you would be making basically different launch curves here. So this is a whole different concept, very comprehensive concept, I would say. So there will be different scenarios. Let's say year one, year two, year three, how much, uh, what's your percentage? It could be 5%, 12%, 20%, right? So basically, what you do is you multiply your treated patients with the brand share, and then you apply different another parameters like duration of therapy, right? So phase 3 PFS data you have, progression-free survival data, let's say you have, and you have real-world data. If median PFS is 8 months, so then we assume DOT or duration of therapy 6 months. So this is a very important concept of various endpoints. So basically, you must know different endpoints of primary endpoints like overall survival, PFS, progression-free survival. So if the median PFS or median progression-free survival is around 8 months, let's say, and here we would be assuming, DOT of around 6 months. So this helps us calculate basically patients that are on patients year on therapy basically. Then because results come at ASCO, right? We must build then scenarios after we are done, right? So we make three scenarios basically. Um Something like if the data is positive, then we would be saying, oh, it can have faster uptake. Um, if the data is moderate, then it can have something like slow uptake. Then if the data is negative, then there might be a delayed launch or right. So this is how companies, de-risk forecast. So once your forecast is ready, your client would be updating the data or sharing the data in the next conference. So you would be using different scenarios, right? So forecasting, I would say, is not like proper Excel. Anyone can do that. If I would give you a model, all the calculations and everything, right? You just need to put the numbers, but you don't know how to get those numbers, how to make assumptions, how to do storytelling, right? So then I don't think it would make sense, your forecast model. So it's all about the assumptions you use, right? So it's basically clinical logics you are just converting into numbers. So if your assumptions are wrong, your forecast would be wrong. So if you like this session, I will do part two if I get more engagements through this video. Also, I have dropped my number and email. So if you want to enroll into my course, you can do that also. And yeah, if you like this, I will do part two and I would be doing, exact Excel formulas and dynamic scenarios and revenue calculations and all everything. Okay, thank you.